This is the definitive guide to cleaning your reef cuts. We are here in the Mentwise. That's Lance's left, just over there. We have the good fortune of having a doctor on board.
Pumping.
Emergency room surgeon, yeah?
Emergency room.
Doc Travis. He's been with us on a trip. Froth Lord, how's the trip been, man?
The trip has been life-changing, so memorable. Good feelings, good memories.
Dr. Froth.
No, it's awesome. He is going to tell you guys the no bullshit nonsense approach to cleaning reef cuts. So let's just say I got scraped up. Nothing super gnarly. I'm not like gouged out needing stitches, but I've gotten scraped up. What's the first step?
Perfect. Super important to be on top of it. But with a lot of things, is if you do these simple 3 things, you'll get it totally taken care of and have very minimal issues. So the 3 steps, and I'll go over each one. Step 1, irrigation. Step 2, antisepsis, antiseptic cleaner. Step 3, wound coverage. That's really the only 3 steps you need that'll take care of almost everything. And then step 4 is monitoring for infection.
Okay.
All right, so we'll back up. Step 1, irrigation. One of the most overlooked, but the most important step in it is just, when I say irrigation, what that means is just running it under water that has pressure behind it, like fresh water ideally. So what you're trying to do is, let's say you got cut on the reef, you've got, skin breakdown. What's in there? There could be some bacteria from the salt water, could be some little bits of coral, could be some bacteria from the coral itself. Stuff in your cut. And you want to get that out because that's the source of infection. That's what gets you infected. The best way to get that out is with hydrostatic pressure, aka running water. The more pressure, the better.
Wait a minute.
Pumping.
So we're lucky on this boat, we've got a little nozzle we can just and blast it all out of there. If you don't have it, you can just run it under a faucet. Same deal for about a minute. And even just kind of rub it around and just flush out any bacteria and any bits of coral you may have in there. And frankly, that is often the only thing you need to do.
And that's usually overlooked. We're on boats
Absolutely.
often. People just come out with the limes. They don't even start washing first. And I'm going to ask you about limes after you finish your 4 steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, so spray it out.
Yeah, just blast out any source of infection, and that'll keep you the most safe out of all of it, and it's the easiest and it's free. Okay, step 2 is where limes come into play and other like cleaning products. Those are the ones that feel good to put on, like iodine solutions, betadine, alcohol wipes, lime because it's got some citric acid in it, and what you're trying to do is just kill bacteria. That's an important part. Like, let's say you weren't able to irrigate out all your bacteria, you still have some in your cut. That's where those products are really helpful in just preventing an infection from setting up and getting going.
If you have limes, alcohol, and betadine available, what are your top 2 choices?
Okay, the betadine and the alcohol will be similar. The alcohol will just be more stingy and painful, but it achieves the same end, which is just like killing bacteria and getting an antibacterial environment going. So if you have betadine, little betadine wipes, little iodine betadine wipes, or a bottle, all that stuff is all great. It'll work wonderful. It won't sting as much. Alcohol wipes will do the same thing. They'll sting a little bit more because they're more irritating to the nerves that have been cut in that little wound. And then if you really have nothing, then you have nature's acid.
Yeah.
Citric acid. That is better than nothing, absolutely.
Cool.
So you've washed it out really well.
Yeah.
You've put in some antiseptic product, and then wound dressing is kind of just an attempt to just protect that open defect from other stuff getting into it. So other stuff in the world, or banging against things, or walking through something that's dirty. And that's a real simple thing of just like a nice adherent dressing.
Just keep it clean.
Keep it clean. Put a dressing over it. Some people, this is a little aside, have some like antibiotic ointment. If you have some antibiotic ointments, bacitracin is a common one. Generics can be called double antibiotic ointment, triple antibiotic ointment. Sort of a non-specific ointment. That can be nice, just a little line in that cut, and then a dressing over the top. It keeps it moist. There's some antibacterial stuff going on. Of all the things, that's not as critical as the other stuff we talked about. that little antibiotic ointment, but it can be nice to put on, and then a nice coverage so that when you're just going about your day, you're protected from other things getting into it.
Epic.
That's it. And then one thing to talk about is just wound healing. Naturally, as your wound heals, it becomes a little red. There's like a halo of red around it. That's your body sending reparation and blood flow and healing cells, and it can get sometimes a little goopy looking and a little wet. In small degrees, that's normal. That's just your body healing. And a little halo of red around a reef cut is normal. What you want to look out for is that halo spreading, and then pain on that skin that wasn't there initially. If that skin around that cut is starting to get redder, hotter, and more painful, that's when it's transitioned from healing skin to infected skin. That's when you start putting antibiotics on board in pill form.
So I'm going to ask you about antibiotics in a minute. And again, this isn't medical advice specifically for you. Let's throw that out there for liability. This is just a conversation. If I need stitches, does that protocol change? Let's say I get a gash pretty good, forearm, knee, whatever, and it's going to need nothing crazy, 5-8 stitches. Protocol still roughly the same?
Yeah, you come in with a big gash that needs to be closed. You irrigate it out real well. You do your antiseptic product really well. And then the next step is, instead of just bandaging it up, you close the wound. And you can close it with tissue glue, you can close it with stitches, you can close it with staples, you can close it with steri strips, just some wound closure to bring those wound edges together, and then put your dressing over the top.
So we close it,
Yeah.
the wound dressing, and then just let it doing its thing, healing wise.
And then something else to mention is that cycle, those steps we just went through, you do it every time you get out of the water. So you go for a surf, whether you hit the reef or not, whether you open back up or not, you just repeat every time you go in the water, and that'll keep your cut.
Irrigate it, some type of antiseptic, ointment
Coverage.
if you got it, then coverage.
Yep.
If I got to get stitches, do I need to automatically start taking an antibiotic? I've heard of open wound that then is closed, you should preemptively start taking something.
It's a good question. It's so tempting to take antibiotics. Really, the data don't support preemptive, prophylactic, preventative antibiotics. So you don't have to unless you start getting evidence of an infection starting. Okay, I'll say a couple sidebars to that. So we're in a really remote area, and the consequence of an untreated infection are a lot more serious than if we were in an urban environment. So if you got a big cut and it was pretty gaping, and definitely you hit the reef hard and there's probably a lot of crap in there, we'll do all those same steps and we'll put you on antibiotics. Just because of the environment we're in and the price of not getting on top of it quickly.
Last question about antibiotics. You mentioned something the other day about kind of order of operations. Let's say I have something that does look like it's starting to get infected, bit gnarly. Start with one antibiotic, and then you said progressively maybe go up to a triple threat. Do you have an initial entry point? Doxy?
Yeah, usually for out here, if we're talking about coral based bacteria and seawater based bacteria, your safest first line is doxycycline, cheap, readily available. It covers the Vibrio species, which are the most common source of a seawater soft tissue infection, and they're on a lot of coral. And if that's not cutting it, you can kind of step up to, there's a bunch of different regimens, but the first line that will cover most things for this type of injury is doxycycline. And generally in 48 hours, you will know whether the doxycycline is doing it for you. If it's not doing it for you, you go to some other antibiotic choices.
Cool. That's amazing. Dude, people, I guarantee this is helpful. Again, thank you everybody. Listen to the man. He clearly knows what he's doing. And again, appreciate it, bro. Thank you for help.
And don't ever become a videographer in a sunny environment. Jeepers!